The USS Missouri Memorial Association will benefit from a 2-year rent waiver under a provision by Congressman Neil Abercrombie that's part of a major defense authorizations bill just approved by the U.S. House. Abercrombie spoke from the U.S. Capitol about the waiver during a video news conference with reporters in Hawaii. He says he'll be working in the coming months to see whether the rent could be eliminated permanently.
We're going to be able to get rid of the rent that the Navy has been charging the USS Missouri for these past several years on the basis that it was a commercial enterprise that required them to be charged accordingly, as if it was a commercial enterprise. We've been able to get rid of that for 2 years while we work out the technical details of eliminating that entirely.
The nonprofit USS Missouri Memorial Association pays the Navy $207,000 in annual rent to keep the historic battleship moored off Ford Island in Pearl Harbor, near another famous memorial for the USS Arizona. Together, the two memorials are historical bookends to history that mark the beginning and end to World War II. Abercrombie, chairman of the House Armed Services Subcommittee on Air and Land Forces, says the rent charged to the Missouri was based on the idea that the Navy had to charge for fair market value for the use of the pier off Ford Island.
Well, obviously there is no fair market value because there's no commercial capacity there. So the rent, if you will, ought to be zero. And we simply have to work out the technical details to make sure that that's made legal. That is to say, rescinding the rent is legal. I don't think it will take very long.
Could there be any legislative help on the huge dry docking costs that they'll face?
Yes, that's a very interesting proposition. We're going to try and have to raise money for that. As you know, the USS Missouri Foundation has been handling all the maintenance questions with regard to the Missouri, and whether or not we'll be able to accommodate that dry docking is a question we'll have to address. I cannot give you an answer on it at the moment, but it's something I will certainly take a good look at.
The Memorial Association is making plans for a dry docking period to make millions of dollars worth of repairs to the mighty Mo. The association depends on admission fees and donations to cover its rent and welcomes 400,000 visitors annually to the mighty Mo, which is of no cost to the federal government. But during a dry docking period, anticipated at 2 to 3 months, no revenues will be generated while the ship is overhauled in accordance with Navy material standards, including high-cost repairs to preserve the hull. The association's chief operating officer spoke to us earlier about the need for dry docking.
The Navy would take a ship like this if it were continuously active, and it would put it in dry dock every few years, say every 3 to 5 years. This hasn't been in dry dock for 15 years. What's the big deal? Well, over time, all of a sudden the hull starts to corrode from, well, think of oxidation, think of rust, except underwater it's a little bit different. But we need to take care of that. We need to clean off the underwater body of the hull.
This is a national treasure, as you can well imagine. The juxtaposition of the Arizona Memorial and the USS Missouri has a symbolic importance that simply cannot be measured against any other monument to World War II within the boundaries of the United States. So to make certain that the Missouri is able to continue to be this important cultural resource is something that's paramount in our considerations. And if it's possible for us to find federal dollars to put toward it, we will certainly make that effort. Whether or not we can do it and under what circumstances we could do it, it remains to be seen. I can't give you a definitive answer on it today. I can tell you that we're going to go to work on it.
Last December, Abercrombie asked the Navy to consider charging a nominal amount of rent to ease the financial burden of preserving and maintaining the 65-year-old warship, but was turned down. Abercrombie then sought a remedy through the legislative process. He says we must do all we can to help the association in its mission to preserve this priceless part of American and world history.